The underworld is an unforgiving realm, and you need a strong build in order to escape it. But that's completely up to the fates, right? Hello everybody and welcome back to Maximus, the game analysis channel dedicated to helping you get good at games. Today we're going to be covering 6 more beginner Boon build tips. Specifically, we're going to be covering how to manipulate the Hades Boon system in order to create builds that are strong enough to actually match Zagreus' perfect Greek god physique. Starting with tip number 1, let's talk about the skeleton of a Greek god. We'll start this guide by going over the basic bones of what we have to work with in each run as we try to escape the underworld. Basically, by the time you reach the end of the underworld, you will almost always have had access to 2 Daedalus hammers, 3 Hermes boons, boons from 4 of the basic gods, and an opportunity to collect 1 or more chaos boons. Additionally, our skeleton also seems to be able to support between 18 and 23 boons maximum. So for our boon discussion, let's focus on the fact that you will only have access to 4 main gods by default at the end of your average run. It is possible to see boons from more than 4 gods, but as you collect boons you will eventually reach the 4 god cap, and after that you will not see other gods' boons. Knowing this, we can begin to make more informed decisions about which gods to accept boons from, and how to collect more boons from certain gods. Now, we can take a 5th god's keepsake in Elysium and a 6th in Styx if we want to try and grab some more key boons. I'm not sure how useful this is in Styx, since you will probably only get 1 boon from the god you choose in Styx, but this could potentially be very useful for replacing a basic boon or grabbing a general boon. Our second tip is going to be covering room risk versus room reward. Now that we understand a little bit about how our boon selection is restricted, let's talk about how the type of room we enter influences the rarity of the boon we get as a reward. There are 4 different rooms that offer boons to Zagreus. Regular rooms marked with the god's symbol, most Charon's shops, elite combat shown as the god's symbol with a skull in the corner, and finally double boon rooms marked with a skull and 2 god symbols. Each of the rooms offer different rarities of boons and different benefits. Regular rooms are our baseline. They offer a standard fight for a standard boon with a rarity scaled to the level of the underworld level that you're on, starting with common and occasionally rare boons in Tartarus. Charon's shops offer boons of the same rarity as standard rooms, or slightly higher rarity. The main benefit is that you don't have to fight for them and can instead use the obol you have collected so far to give yourself a little boost in power. Elite combat rooms are awesome, and should always be taken when they are offering a boon reward, as the rarity of boons offered are significantly increased when clearing one of these rooms. You can find epic boons from these rooms in Tartarus, and there is also an increased chance of finding a legendary and duo boon in these rooms as well. And finally, we have the elite 2 boon rooms, which offer quantity over quality rewards. Instead of offering a higher quality boon as a reward for an elite combat, your reward is 2 boons from 2 different gods, and it seems like they actually have slightly lower rarity than regular boon rooms. These rooms are great at helping you fill out your build, but don't expect that epic rarity boon that you're searching for to pop up. Now that we know the limitations of our builds and what rewards we can expect from each room, let's talk about how to collect the god that you want by putting your thumb on the scale. When you want to create a specific build or collect god boons that complement your weapon, you should absolutely take your main god's keepsake at the start of your run, and the keepsake of your main complementary god at the start of Asphodel. If you want more information on what gods match which weapons, check out my god guide playlist in the card in the top right. Taking a god's keepsake early is essentially putting your thumb on the scale of the Hades boon reward randomizer. The earlier you collect a god's boon, the more overall chances you will have to collect further rewards from that god. Essentially, if there's a max of around 20 boons you can collect in a single run, then taking your first boon from the god you want will result in you having 19 additional chances at getting another of their boons. There does seem to be a lower probability, however, that you will keep on finding boons from a god that you already have several boons from. God keepsakes also help you fish for duo and complementary boons between gods when taken at the start of each level of the underworld. Another way that god keepsakes help you tip the scales of the randomizer is by taking the keepsake of a god that you have already collected a boon from. This allows you to fish for a dedicated buff boon for a god that you have already, and significantly increase the power of said god. Okay, so now we know the restrictions on our build, what kind of rewards to expect from what room, and how to push the system to give us more boons from gods that we want. Now let's talk about the actual quality of boons that we want to be collecting and how to get more of them. That brings us to tip 4, boon rarity versus boon level. Our fourth tip is that boon rarity is far more important than boon level. The higher a boon's rarity is, the better its base effects are. They resist more damage, deal more damage, last longer, etc. Increasing boon level, however, has a very swiftly diminishing return, where after the second level, it's not really worthwhile to level up a boon in most cases. However, since leveling up boons applies a proportional increase to boons, having higher rarity boons increases the effectiveness of applying levels to them. Translation: heroic level boons benefit more from being leveled up than common boons. This is why in 95% of cases it is better to collect a higher rarity boon or additional boon over Power Poms, and why you should not pick Pom Porridge when speaking with Rarity. Actually, despite adoring porridge in real life, I never pick Pom Porridge from Rarity, and I'm curious if anyone has found a use for it. Let me know in the comments below if it's an upgrade you actually try to get. Okay, so now we know that boon rarity is more important than boon level. Now let's cover another very important build principle, which is that there are actually 3 distinct damage pools in Hades. So you guys may be shocked to know this because it's not clearly explained in the game, but there are actually 3 distinct damage pools in Hades. If you've watched my content up until this point, especially the Let's Plays, you'll hear me talk about physical damage, magic damage, and cast damage. Well, here is where I'm finally gonna lay out what I mean when I'm talking about that. So physical damage is the base damage of your attack or the base damage of your special flourish plus any boon bonuses you have on top of that. For example, boiling blood increases the damage of your attack and flourish by 50%, Artemis's common hunter strike increases attack by 15%, and Chaos's flourish boons provide a large increase in damage to Zagreus' special attack. All of these attacks that buff your basic strike or your basic flourish are physical damage. Now quickly covering magic damage. Magic damage is any damage that is applied as a bonus effect to Zagreus' basic abilities. I also consider damage done by call abilities to be magic damage since they can only be improved by magic damage boons. Zeus's lightning effects, Ares' doom curse and blade rifts, and Dionysus' hangover curse are all magic damage. Only abilities that increase all damage improve these boons, such as Ruthless Reflex giving a blanket 50% increase to all damage, Ravenous Will offering damage increases when you're out of bloodstones, and Sweet Surrender boosting damage against weak foes. All of these increases also improve physical and cast damage, but deserve a more specified class of their own in magic damage, since they are the only way to increase the damage of magic abilities. Also, because magic abilities tend to do a significant amount of base damage, these increases are very dramatic and can create quite high damage builds. This is why I always take a Ruthless Reflex, because it is the largest magic damage boost you can get and makes a 5-stack epic hangover strike go from 45 to 78 damage every half second, or makes a 140 damage Doom Flourish deal 210 damage, both of which are a much more significant increase than similar boosts on physical attacks. Lastly, we have cast damage, which is a much smaller damage class since there are fewer boons that specifically increase its damage. Again though, our cast has 50 base damage before equipping a boon on it, so even seemingly small increases make a big damage difference. Increases to cast damage specify that they increase the damage of your cast and include Urge to Kill, Shot boons from Chaos, and the Bad News boon from Hermes. Knowing about these 3 different damage pools, you should try and decide what type of build you're going for at the start of a run. If you pick up an early Artemis or Athena boon, you probably want to start pushing closer towards physical damage, where if you pick up Zeus right away, you probably want to push closer to magic damage. So boon rarity is more important than leveling up boons, and there are 3 damage pools that we want to try and stack boons into in order to create strong builds. We have one more tip to cover, and it is how are we going to get the most heroic boons as possible. So how can we be blessed with heroic rarity boons? We've already covered that the rarity of a boon is more important than a boon's level, so it makes sense that heroic rarity boons are something that we want to collect as often as possible. In fact, heroic rarity boons have the potential to be stronger than even legendary boons, which makes sense since they are actually more challenging to receive. There are 3 ways to get heroic boons. First, we can replace an epic tier basic boon with a boon from another god. This is probably the easiest method of getting heroic boons, but there is some luck required since you don't know if the boon being offered will actually match the rest of your build or your infernal arm. Don't feel pressured to take a heroic Doom Strike on the Fists of Malphon if you already have an epic Hangover Strike. Choosing suboptimal boons will almost always get you killed. The second way to get heroic boons is choosing Eurydice's Ambrosia Delight when you stop by for dinner. If you have several epic boons, there's a good chance that one of them will be upgraded to the heroic tier, though certain boons will have more impact than others and you have little control over which will be upgraded. Lastly, we have the option to hunt for Demeter's boon Rare Crop. When selected, this boon will randomly select a number of your other boons, make them common, and then gradually level their rarity every 3 rooms as you fight through the underworld. If you can find this in Tartarus or Asphodel while you still only have a few other boons, you can somewhat control which boons will be targeted by Rare Crop. Rare Crop guarantees several heroic boons for your build, and getting 3 heroic builds from an epic level Rare Crop makes for an easy escape. So we have our basic build framework where we are going to have 4 main gods to choose from and around 20 boons in total to collect, as well as being able to influence the quality of those boons by going into harder rooms. We also know that we want to collect more rare boons rather than leveling them up, and we also know that we can use keepsakes to collect boons from gods that we think are going to complement our build the best. And finally, we also talked about how to get our heroic rarity boons, which are very important and a very nice boost to any run. These are the techniques I use to create stronger builds as I go through Hades, and any beginner can use them. The only ones I didn't talk about was using the rerolls from the Mirror of Night, and that's just because you need a lot of darkness in order to actually earn them. I now challenge you guys to leave a comment down below that either builds on the tips I've shared in this video, or a different beginner tip you wish you'd known when you first started the game. Let's help new players coming into Hades really get into it and start to get closer and closer to being the underworld so that they can experience the entire story that Supergiant has laid out for us in this wonderful game. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I will see you next time. And remember, there is no escape.